Hi there, I made a leg vise. This is a design that Rex Krueger came up with and others. It's pretty historic, but anyway, I thought my workbench, which has been working great, could use a little bit of extra holding power. So I decided to make a leg vise. So I'll link to the designs I used to make this, but let me show you how it works. So it's pretty simple, really. Just get whatever you're trying to hold. You adjust the jaws so they're open enough. Kick the floor wedge, which I'll show later how to make that, and then crank it down. And it's very, very secure. So anyways, let's build it. So here I'm just gluing together the blank for the chop. This is made from 2 pieces of 2x12, and yeah, I just glue them up. I already made sure that the pieces are flat and will mate together well. Probably should have used a little bit more glue, but it worked fine. So there you go. This is a scaffolding leveling screw, and this is what we're going to use for the main vise screw. But it's got this little piece right here in the thread that makes it so you can't unscrew the stand part all the way. We got to remove that. The bottom of the plate is what we're going to use to mount to the hub, but the plate is just a little too big, so we're going to cut the corners off. Ugh, I like hand tool woodworking, not hand tool metalworking. There, that's better. A little cleanup on those sharp edges. Next I need to drill some new screw holes into the plate because the existing ones are just a little too big. Here's a note, don't brush off the metal flakes with your fingers. I was picking metal splinters out of my fingers for like days after that. Use gloves. And here it is with all the metalworking done. Now I'm making the hub that will attach to the metal screw. This is just made out of southern yellow pine again, gluing up 2 pieces of 2x material. Really should have added some salt into this glue joint. It was really sliding around on me a lot. Now I need to cut off the corners of the hub. Okay, my octagon here is made. I've eased all the edges, kind of sanded everything down or worked it down so it's smooth. Now you'll see there's this line through the middle. The next step is I need to drill a hole all the way through the hub here so that this dowel rod can fit through. So I did a little experimenting with hole sizes, and this is a 1-inch dowel, and here I've drilled a 1-inch hole, but it doesn't fit very well. So I'd have to probably sand the dowel down quite a bit to get that hole to work. So then I drilled a 1 1/8 inch hole, and this one's probably a little looser than I'd like, but I think it'll work, and it should be fine. So I'm going to drill a 1 1/8 inch hole all the way through here. Now my drill bit won't go all the way through, so I've tried to track the line straight across so I can drill from both sides and hopefully meet in the middle. I'm hoping that works out okay. I kind of checked everything for square, so that should in theory work. We'll find out. If it doesn't meet perfectly, I've got quite a bit of extra slop in this hole diameter, so it'll probably still work, but we'll see.
And I got the hole drilled for the dowel, and now I'm just putting in all the screws to hold the hub to the screw handle. And here's the hub all put together with the handle and the vice screw. Now I'm coming back to the chop that I glued up at the beginning, and I'm just cutting off the angled part that will sit on the floor. This is a little out of order, but this will make sense in a second. Now I'm drilling the hole where the vice screw will go through my workbench. First I'm using a guide block, and then after the initial hole, just drill on through.
Okay, so I've got the chop clamped to my bench where I want it. The hole that I just drilled for the vice screw is right around in there. I've positioned the chop kind of so the hole's roughly in the middle. So now I want to mark the chop from the back side with the same drill bit that I used to make the hole for the vice screw, so that I can drill the hole through the chop. So this is going to be kind of awkward, but I'm going to try and reach behind here, find the hole that I made, put the same bit in until it bottoms out on the chop, which I think I have here. Okay. Now I'm going to give it a nice little tap with my hammer, hopefully. There we go. So now I should have a mark where I can drill through the chop. Fingers crossed.
So now I can drill the hole through the chop for the vice screw. Now I'm going to take a little detour and show you how to mount the nut on the backside of the bench's apron. So this is the backside of the front apron of my workbench. Since my workbench can be disassembled really easily, it's really easy just to pop the front apron off and do stuff on the backside of it. So here I've got the vice screw through the hole that I just drilled, and I'm basically putting, I made screw holes through the nut, and I made some little riser blocks so that it mates up to the backside of the apron correctly, and I'm just using the screw to get it aligned so that I can mark the screw holes and then go ahead and screw in that nut so that it's mounted to the back of the apron. And now back to the chop. So the next part is a whole lot of sawing. So I'm going to trim down some parts that aren't needed on the bottom of the leg vise. The chop needs to be wider at the top, but at the bottom it doesn't need much width at all. So I'm going to trim away some long sections on both sides of the bottom of the chop. Then I'm also going to cut off the top of the chop level with the bench. And then finally, I'll put a big bevel on the top edge of the chop. Now I'll just clean up all those saw marks with a combination of work with a jack plane, a spoke shave, and a block plane. With the chop finished, I just need to make a floor wedge and cut the recess for the floor wedge. The purpose of the floor wedge is kind of the same thing as a pin board in a typical leg vise. It's to make sure that your clamping force still has enough power up on the main jaws of the chop. So basically the bottom needs to have something that's roughly the same width as what you're holding up at the top of the chop down at the bottom.
So I didn't show installing this because the camera work was a little bit of a pain. But I installed this guide rod here, which is just 5/8 inch oak dowel. And basically what I did was to clamp down the vise and then make a mark right up against the leg of the bench, and then I drilled a hole into the chop partway in and then glued in that dowel. There's nothing else that's sort of like keeping that dowel attached to the bench. It's only glued into the chop. The purpose of it is when you're turning the vise I guess it's clockwise. Yeah. So when you're tightening it down, the foot of the chop will tend to lift off the ground. It'll rotate. And basically that dowel is there to sort of like hold against the bench leg so that the chop won't rotate. The other direction you don't have to worry about it because the foot of the chop will sort of keep it from rotating the other direction. But that's the only purpose for this guide rod, and pretty easy to install.
And here's the finished leg vise holding a big chunk of wood. I'm really happy with it. It turned out well. I'll probably finish this with a little bit of boiled linseed oil when things warm up a little bit. But other than that, it is done. Thank you for watching.